So we also wanted this to be a mixed event, a gathering between academic and activists, because one of the observation we have made is that there is a persistence of such problematic relation between police and people, despite mobilization, despite the existence of people fighting this violence for quite a long time in France and in Kenya. So we thought maybe there is more research needed on two questions. First, why are such violence so persistent? What are the political, professional, social logics of violence? We felt that in Kenya, as in lots of African countries, the research on police has focused mainly on private initiatives or mixed reforms. But we need more research on the day-to-day functioning of the police as an institution and day-to-day interaction between the police and the people. In France, we have maybe a longer tradition of history and sociology of the police, and we hope to take the opportunity of some specialists here to maybe discuss some tools and methodology on research on police. We thought also that research would help understand why violence is sometimes accepted and why people do rebel against violence at other time. When do people think that the violence is not legitimate anymore? What are their perception of justice, police, beyond the quantitative survey, which shows that how little confidence French or Kenyan citizens have toward this institution? And we thought that the ethnographic descriptions that we will have today and tomorrow will prove very useful to understand this ambiguous relation of citizens to police violence. So let me thank the participants of these conversations, the one coming from far, from France, who are here for the first time in Kenya, the one coming from closer but taking time to share their experiences. So thank you, all of you. Let me finish also by, of course, mentioning the victims of this police violence, because we are here also in their name, and the one who support them. And I just wanted to mention one person who is our friend, the late Njuguna Mutai, who was collecting, like as far as from the 90s, cases of police violence in this quarterly repression report that he was in charge in KHRC. So karibuni tena, and I will leave the floor to Mutuma.
Thank you very much, Marie, and again, thank you to all the participants. Just to take off from where Marie left, and to say that even though this is a problem in France and Kenya with regard to police violence, indeed, the question of police violence is a global issue. We know what has been happening in the US, particularly with regard to how the police interact with minorities, and which has led to the rise of Black Lives Matter. And elsewhere, we know the problem that the police have had with the interaction, particularly with the migrants or people of Islamic or Muslim backgrounds. Indeed, it is striking that the fact that the whole idea of human rights emerges from the worries and the concerns that nation states and individuals had with the power of the states. And that concern and worry globally persists. The greatest challenge to human rights remains actually from the organized power of the states, and mostly as is represented and projected by security services. One scholar did a study account of the people killed by states, and invented the term democide, I think. And the state agencies had killed more individuals than the actually individuals died in wars. So the state power still remains one of the major challenges to rights. Of course, in places where you don't have a nation state, the question of the absence of the nation state is bigger, but in most of the parts of the world, it's the power of the state through the police, through security agencies, that remains a challenge. So just want to point out 3 things, particularly from the work that I've been doing until last year as the UN Special Rapporteur on racism and xenophobia. And with regard to what we've seen, the patterns with regard to police violence and how states respond. Number 1 is police have problems in how they police minorities. This would be racial, ethnic, religious minorities. That's a global problem that cuts across all continents, serious problems that result in violence many times, or certain violations of rights. Number 2 is with regard to how public police interact with the poor. Now, irrespective of the race, irrespective of the religion or ethnicity, there is a problem, there's a pattern with regard to how police interact with the poor. Most of the violence is projected against the poor in all these countries. Most of the violence is directed to the poor in all these countries. And the third point that I want to emphasize, and which luckily has been also now is the subject of sustainable development goals through the United Nations, is the fact that we don't have good data. States are, unsurprisingly, but incredibly reluctant to collect data and statistics with regard to the problems and the patterns and the trends on policing and the violence or violations that perpetrated by police. Globally, again, this is a problem in all the continents. This is a problem in almost all the countries, that we don't have good data, we don't have good trends, we don't have good information on the extent and the nature of this particular problem. So you can see beyond these conversations, there's a lot of relevance, a lot of, again, good lessons also to learn from various countries in how they are responding to this. And the discussion that we're going to have for the next 2 days is not just relevant to the 2 countries, but actually it contributes to a broader global discussion as well as discourse on how to improve police-people relations. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're well. My name is Wangui, and I am the Participatory Action Research Coordinator for Mathare Social Justice Center. So maybe if you've not heard about us before, the report you picked up downstairs, we launched in 2017. And in that report, as a small organization based in Mathare, but also trying to reflect dynamics that exist in Korogocho and other poor urban settlements, we documented 50 young people who had died. And we also have another report, that's a bit larger than this one, that from reviewing newspaper articles, picked out 803 people who had died between 2013 and 2016. So we wanted to do this partially, and just building on what Marie and Mutuma are saying, because there's not an adequate tally of the generations lost and who have been wiped out by government forces. So for us, I'm not from Mathare, but I've been working there for 10 years, just trying to document the young people who have disappeared, classmates of our friends, family members of our friends who have disappeared, but whose names don't have value enough to appear in the newspaper, in the government, or be in any register. And in fact, families are often too scared to go and document the fact that their child has been killed by the police. So for us, coming together, because it was extrajudicial executions in Kenya is a very loaded phenomena. People are scared to do it, not just poor grassroots people, but also big organizations. It's something that the government fights back against very hard. But we did it because we wanted to memorialize them and say that poor people are not liars. If they say that their families have been killed, their family members have been killed, they're not liars. And so this was our task. But beyond just showcasing or documenting these deaths, we also wanted to show the ways that Kenyans are living and dying. They don't have water, but their children are also being killed. So attending to this larger structural violence that makes life very hard to live in Kenya. So this is what we are wanting to do, and I think maybe building on what Marie and Mutuma are doing, ours is a much more contextual focus, not just Mathare, but poor urban settlements as well. And beyond showing these deaths and the structural violence that governs their death, to try and call attention to what socialization is there that makes poor children so easy to kill. So this is what we wanted to talk about, and hopefully our report is just a small contribution to this. Thank you.